Hey, I'm Jeff. All right, so today I've been sober for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. So when I think about what it was like getting sober, what was the first 30 days like, I need to back up just before that because I think it really has to do a lot with how long you've been drinking, because how much damage you have done to yourself. Because in my case, I was pretty certain that I had to go to a detox prior to quitting for good. And so my first day of sobriety, which was June 2nd, 2023, was in detox. Matter of fact, I had a drink that morning. No, I didn't have a drink because, June 1st I had a drink. And then I went to detox, and then June 2nd was my first full day sitting in detox with nothing in my system. And that was 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days ago. All right, so one thing that really comes to mind, now I spent 4 days in a medical detox. So as I'm going through this 30 days, I want you to understand something, that there's, if you've just been drinking for a little bit and you just want a new way of life and you're just thinking about going sober, you're probably fine, just stop, just stopping. And then just depending on what kind of program, if you want to go into a program or whatever, I went into a program. So I'll talk about that in a second. But I used to say I relapsed 100 times in my lifetime, and that's not the case, because what I did was, let's just be real. I just stopped and started drinking about 100 times. So it wasn't a relapse. A relapse suggests that, I was following some program of success and I just failed or miserably and went back drinking again. That's not it. I was in a a marriage where my wife was, this is just facts and truth, and part of sobriety, a big part of sobriety is just being real and being honest with yourself. But the reality is, my wife at the time traveled a lot. She traveled most of our marriage, and so she would be gone for 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time, and then back for 4 or 5 weeks, and then gone for 4, 5, 6 weeks. So when I say I stopped and started drinking about 100 times, that's pretty accurate. That's not blowing smoke, because I didn't want her to see how much I had been drinking while she was gone. So I would stop drinking a couple of days, usually a couple of days before she came back into town. And then, of course, she would want to have a drink when we got there, but I didn't want to be a big mess, going through withdrawals and all that when she got home. So I wanted her to think that I had it all together. So I was lying, So, all right, so what happens is the longer you drink. Now, I drank heavy for about 25 years, and it was vodka. I didn't drink beer. I mean, I would drink wine here and there, and I would drink a beer here and there, but my drug of choice was vodka, hard liquor. And I ended up being a maintenance drinker, okay? So, but there's something, your body can handle a lot, but there's a point where your body is like crying uncle and is tapping out. Your body just says, enough, enough, can't do this anymore. And so your body's in a position where it will take longer. So the withdrawals will get worse. Here's what I'm saying. The longer you drink, and then you stop, and then you start again, then you stop, then you start again, the more you do that, the worse the withdrawals will get, and the longer it will take. So I just want to preface my 30 days with that. We have a saying in the rooms of recovery, which I am heavily involved in. It is a part of my life, which is one of the reasons I credit having 2 years of sobriety, over 2 years. One of the sayings that we say, amongst about 10,000 things that we say, is 30 days, we're talking about 30 days here being sober, but 30 days is like 1,000 nights. And again, it depends on, like, if you're a big, heavy drinker, that first month could be pretty brutal, physically, usually. So that's what happened to me. Okay, as I said, I went to detox, a medical detox. I went away. It was like 4 hours away from my house, and had somebody drive me up. They came and picked me up, and I was in no shape to drive, and had a drink that on the way. Well, before she picked me up, stay there for 4 days, and then when I got home, still not. I'm not good. All right, I'm not good at all. Basically, they were keeping me from dying because if you have a long drinking career and you are dependent on vodka, or you're dependent on alcohol or drugs, if you stop cold turkey, you could die. Withdrawals you can stop, your heart can stop. There's these things called delirium tremors, DTs. You've probably heard of that, DTs. Delirium tremors, where your whole body is just shaking uncontrollably. So when I got back from the detox, I was still in pretty rough shape. And I was in pretty rough shape probably for a couple months, to be honest with you. But the 30 days, the physical addiction, obsession of having to drink probably left within several days. Once I got it out of my system, my body wanted it. Okay, I want to make that clear. My body needed it because I used to be a social drinker. Then I drank for mental dependency and emotional dependency. But then there comes a point, you drink long enough, then you will become physically dependent on alcohol, and that's where I was. So my body physically needed alcohol for quite a while, but you got to make, I made up my mind this time, that I'm going to do it. And so, I was dying, so I really didn't have much of a choice. So after those first few days, I was pretty much a wreck, really shaky. And not everybody gets affected a little different, but in my case, I got the shakes really bad. So I was a maintenance drinker, and then I shook. I would shake to pour the vodka in my glass. I would shake to brush my teeth. I would shake until I got something in my system. And so that's the way it was for many, many years. And so I was like that. I could barely feed myself, in that first few weeks of being sober. And so what I did do is I did start going immediately. Well, after the 4 days of detox, the next day I was home, I started going to AA meetings. And quite frankly, AA meetings changed my life, as they have millions of people before me. And today I continue to go to AA meetings. So, you doing something else? Great. I'm telling you what I did. And I'm telling you what's worked for millions of people in the last 90 years. The same words that was written in that big book 90 years ago is still relevant today. And I'm seeing people all the time. Not every day, but a lot. They get well, and it's using this program. So I started going to meetings every day. I started going every morning, and to this day, 2 years, 2 months later, I still go every morning. Almost every morning, like 98% of the mornings since I've been sober, I have been going to that 7:30 meeting, that same one, and I quite frankly love it. So, but in that first month, since we're talking about that first month, I was really in bad shape. I mean, a lot of the people in those rooms, I found out later, they thought that they didn't think I was going to make it. I did develop cirrhosis. I had the ascites, where I had the fluid on my gut, and I was yellow, and I was really skinny. Other than the fluid that was on my abdomen, I was really, really skinny because I wasn't eating. I looked like death. And so that first month was rough for me. So it just depends on how you are in your game. But I'm going to tell you, sobriety is worth it. Your first 30 days, it's going to be tough, especially the physical part of it, if you've gotten to that part. But what's tougher, see, it's in the early days, stopping drinking wasn't an issue in the early days. The problem was staying stopped. And so when that's what we figure out in the rooms, that's recovery right there. So anyway, my first 30 days sucked. And if it wasn't for those rooms of recovery, then I wouldn't be here today. But I would just suggest, I would advise anybody, if you know who you are, if you're a heavy drinker or a heavy drug user, it's possible that you probably will need a medical detox. You're going to have to be supervised by a nurse or doctor to get you through those first few days, because you can die from withdrawals. All right, so that is fact. So anyway, that's my first 30 days. Hope that helps somebody, and I'm on to do something else. Talk to you guys later.